Hey everybody, it's Zach. Welcome back to the Heroverse. And guys, I just got done seeing Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Will be, of course, my non-spoiler review. I thought to myself after I was done in the theater, do I want to do a spoiler review? Do I want to do a non-spoiler review? I kind of ended up saying, you know what, I'm going to do a non-spoiler because I really enjoyed this movie. It's definitely high up there on one of the best movies of 2023. Tom Cruise, yet again, did it again with another banger in the Mission Impossible franchise. As we all know, part one of Dead Reckoning is kind of like a culmination of the ending of the Mission Impossible franchise. So all we have is part two, which we're not quite sure yet when part two will come out. We know in one of the interviews that Tom Cruise had for the press junket for Mission Impossible, I think he was on the red carpet, if I believe. He said that they kind of finished half of Mission Impossible Part 2 of Dead Reckoning. They have to finish the other half. Of course, we're not quite sure when yet, due to the fact of, the writers being on strike, and of course now the actors being on strike. Because as we all know, the strike is going on right now. The actors just, started going on strike. So we're kind of on halt when it comes to, writing, movies and TV shows. And when it comes to also, actors, making these movies and TV shows, it's kind of on halt for all projects. So we're really not quite sure when we'll get part two of Dead Reckoning. All I know is that I really enjoyed part one. This, I was really excited ever since we kind of got the trailers, for this movie. I also thought to myself, even though I did like the first teaser we got for Dead Reckoning, I thought to myself, this looks like a lot of stuff, we kind of already saw in the previous films, mainly with the whole car chase sequence, from we saw from the teaser in this movie. I was like, okay, we kind of saw this with the motorcycle, sequence and the car chase sequence we saw in the previous film of Mission Impossible Fallout. So I was kind of like, oh my God, is this kind of repeating itself? I kind of had that in the back of my mind. I was still excited, but the car chase sequences in this movie is nothing like we like is nothing like we have seen, but we have seen before in the Mission Impossible movies. Like they really did something crazy with this car chase sequence with Haley Atwell. Speaking of Haley Atwell, she definitely was a standout in this movie playing the character Grace. I'm not going to get into any more than that. She was definitely a standout character in this movie. Not only that, another standout character for me definitely was Palm Kalamatif. If I'm saying your name, Palm, I'm sorry if I'm saying your last name wrong. I know your first name is Palm. But I thought you killed it. She did a great job. She plays the villain in this movie is kind of assassin. The villain in this movie, his name is if I'm correct, his name is I want to make sure it's Gabriel. So the villain in this movie is his name is Gabriel, and she kind of plays his kind of henchman, and she killed it. Her fight sequences were awesome. She said in a press junket that she got to do a lot of her own stunts and a lot of her own fighting. She killed it. She was definitely a standout as well as Haley was. They were like the biggest standouts of this movie to me personally. Of course, also with Tom Cruise, he always kills it as the character of Ethan Hunt. He always really knows how to put on the show, and he always knows to really up the stakes in these movies, and he just killed it. I was saying to myself, I can't imagine he doesn't get he doesn't get to choose who gets to be in these movies. He really, if he really handpicked amazing actors to come into this movie and really make this movie, 10 times bigger than, the previous film of Mission Impossible Fallout. And Mission Impossible Fallout is definitely like my favorite Mission Impossible movie of all time. And then I would probably rank it, I'm actually gonna look at Mission Impossible films because it's gonna be hard for me to like name all the Mission Impossible movies. I would probably do Mission Impossible, Rogue Nation. I'd probably do after Fallout. Then I would probably do Mission Impossible 3, then 2, then 1. But this, of course, definitely would be Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning would be first under and then Fallout would be underneath that. So as of right now, that's how I would rank the Mission Impossible movies. I definitely think that this is the best Mission Impossible movie, and the action sequences in this movie just are insane. Like I said, like mainly by action sequences, like when it comes to the fighting, I think Palm killed it. Like she had the best hand-to-hand fight sequences in the movie, and she just truly was a badass. She truly was, like a a henchman in this movie. She truly was a threat that helped out the Gabriel character, which he was the kind of the main villain of this movie. And I really do like the idea of this movie. Like there is more than just Gabriel and more than just, Paris, which that of course is Palm's character's name in the movie. Of the henchman of Gabriel, Palm's character's name is Paris, and like I said, like you think that they're like you think, oh my god, like them as a package unit of a threat being being the threat to Ethan Hunt. It's like no, there is a bigger threat that Gabriel is using in this movie, which I don't even want to get into really what the threat is, but that just goes to show, like I said, that Tom keeps making these villains like stakes, like these villains like the threat level stakes being higher and higher, but he really does something very clever and unique in this movie that I really didn't think that they would do in this movie, that made this movie like, oh my god, what a way to up the threat. We think it's just Gabriel and Paris. It's like no, they are using something and they are after something that could really take control, like really take over the world, whoever has control of this thing. So that's like all I'm gonna say about it. But like that really, like the true villain of this movie is very like creative. I don't know how they really thought about the villain being this thing, but it's like damn, it's very creative and in a way to like keep us on our toes and really like make things harder for Ethan, and of course Ethan's friends of Luther and Benji, and I'm trying to remember, I'm trying to remember her name. It's I think it's what's her name? What's her name? It's like I can't remember on the top of my head. I always forget how to pronounce it. Ilsa, of course. Which Ilsa, we got introduced to that character in Mission Impossible. I think it was Ghost Protocol, if I'm correct, or which Mission Impossible was it? I think it was Mission Impossible Rogue Nation is when we got introduced to that character, and I've always loved that character. And I always thought that character really like connected with Ethan's character, and they actually we're sadly enough they didn't really give much stuff for the Ilsa character to do in this movie, which was a bummer because I was really hoping we'd see a little bit more with that character in this movie, but we really didn't. And I was kind of like that was probably the only thing I didn't like, is that we didn't get much with that character. But when it comes to, but we get a lot of Benji in this movie, we get a lot of Luther in this movie. But like the main, focus characters in this movie, of course, I would say is definitely, of course, Ethan, Palm, which of course, Paris, and also, the character, the villain of the movie of, I think it was, what did I say? It was, what was it? Of, Gabriel. So like those were like the main like focuses of the movie, and it's kind of like of course the typical story of Mission Impossible. Ethan has to save the world, and of course his friends are there to help him save the world. So really, that's essentially like the big plot of the movie, is that just Ethan's doing Ethan things, trying to save the world. And there's more things to Gabriel's character tying into Ethan. I don't really want to get into that because I didn't want to give any spoilers. All I'm saying is that definitely go see this movie. The action is incredible. The fight sequences are incredible, and of course that bike sequence where again Tom Cruise is literally riding a motorcycle off of a cliff, and of course parachuting to his objective was insane. That was probably the biggest stunt of this movie. Was that I remember when we saw that in the teaser trailer, I was like, oh my god, Tom Cruise really keeps upping the stunts in this movie, the big action set pieces in this movie, and that motorcycle jump off the cliff and parachuting to his objective, like it only gets crazier. That's a big set piece. That's not just one set piece. It leads into a bigger set piece towards the end of the film, and it just was insane to me. And like I said, the set piece with the car, with Haley and Tom, in the Fiat riding around was crazy. Like how fast the Fiat was and how creative it was for that car chase sequence, I just thought was really fun. And there was a lot of funny moments in this movie. There was more funny moments in this movie than I would say that there was in any other Mission Impossible movie. And it really is crazy to me that I heard a lot of people, for some people, I did hear say that they thought this movie was disappointing, thought this movie was, kind of underwhelming. This movie was definitely not that. This movie, if I'm correct, was like 2 hours. I think it was like 2 hours. No, it was 2 hours and 43 minutes. I really did not feel that because I just, between the music, between the score, which I'm gonna see who did the score real quick because whoever did the score for the movie did an amazing job. Um, the composer. Who was the composer? Lauren Bailiff. Bailiff. If I'm saying your name wrong, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your last name wrong, but it's Lauren Bailiff. Did an amazing job. I think if I'm correct, he's done all the other Mission Impossible he's composed all the other Mission Impossible movies. If I'm correct, but he did an amazing job, and really the music really tied into really like keeping you on your seat, keeping you invested, and really like building the kind of anxiety of the threat level and of and like I said before, like this threat level in this movie is nothing like we've ever faced in any of the other Mission Impossible movies. So when you have that great score over the threat level of the villain, you really like couldn't help but like want like be on the edge of your seat and be like, oh my god, like anything can happen, like oh my god, like anybody can die right now. Like you have that vibe in this movie. So when people are saying it's disappointing, it's like, no, it's not disappointing. This movie did like topped any other Mission Impossible, like when it came to like stunt sequences, when it came to like action sequences, when it came to like story. This movie hit on all cylinders. And I feel like also, I mean, this also goes into the whole jump the shark, and and the problem that a lot of franchises have with jumping the shark. Mainly the Fast and the Furious franchise jumps the shark. That franchise jumped the shark right when it left street racing. This franchise is titled Mission Impossible, so if they want to, they can jump the shark, but they never go that far. They stay in the line of Mission Impossible without going to the point of like, oh my god, this is ridiculous. Like the Fast and the Furious movies did. They're catching cars. They're dragging nuclear bombs through cities and shit. Like they're going to space. They're doing crazy shit in that franchise. But this franchise never did that, and it's titled Mission Impossible. They're still saying grounded enough where it's like, okay, like this is like beyond crazy. Like it's not like also like that like this franchise succeeded unlike the Fast and the Furious franchise, and unlike even the John Wick franchise. I hate to say it, but like the John Wick franchise stayed pretty grounded in kind of the gun fu of it all, of like of the John Wick movies, of the different choreography and fight styles with guns and stuff, of just being like of it being an assassin franchise. But then got really crazy in John Wick 4. It was a letdown. In my personal opinion, John Wick 4 was definitely a letdown, and I thought it was. I thought the fight sequences went on for too long. That's something that this movie did not do. I thought also, the story of it all. I thought this movie balanced the story and the action. It felt like just all action over story in the John Wick in John Wick 4. It felt like it was just nothing but action, and they really like were not paying attention on making a good story. And I felt like that was a really disappointment because the build up to John Wick 3 going into John Wick 4 was not what I hoped it out. Like I was hoping it was gonna be, and it was a big letdown. That movie was disappointing, and that movie was kind of underwhelming. This movie definitely was not that, and I feel like that the Mission Impossible franchise is probably the only franchise that keep itself grounded, but also build the stakes of villains, but also build up the stunts and build up the fight choreography without it being too insane and too unrealistic. That this movie can really keep you in its universe without being like, okay, feels like it's really out of place, and they're not really staying in the continuity of their universe of how crazy things get. Like how the Fast and Furious franchise felt like it went way beyond their continuity of just street racing and went like and totally jumped the shark. And then the John Wick franchise going into doing crazy assassin gun fu fight choreography, and then turned into like falling down the steps and never stopped to jumping out of the building, landing on a car and not being dead, and just a whole bunch of shit like that did not make any sense, and just that totally jumped the shark for its last film. but this did not do that, and that's why I really appreciated it. And I was like, okay, this really like is, keeping me invested. This is something that's been consistent all throughout, the franchise, is these movies, but also upping the stakes and upping the choreography and upping, the stunts. This franchise has done that, and that's why I'm super excited for part two, because the way they leave this movie, it's kind of like, oh, like, damn, you know what I mean? It's like they leave it in such a great place where like you're excited for the next mission. You know what I mean? Or like you're excited for the next part of the mission that we end off in this movie. So I'm really excited for part two. I really enjoyed this movie. It's definitely high up on there of my favorite movies of 2023. I don't think it beats Across the Spider-Verse, and I don't think it beats Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 for me, but I definitely think it takes that third spot for probably one of the best movies I've seen yet of 2023. There's definitely a lot of movies I've seen this year, but I definitely think that those are my top three movies. I'm actually thinking about doing a ranked movies of like 2023. I'm thinking about doing that, or I think honestly I might just post a ranking up on my community tab of what my favorite movies, or how I would rank the movie so far of this year. But honestly, like I said, this movie did not disappoint. I'm so glad I didn't listen to a lot of people that said it was, disappointing and underwhelming. I'm glad that, I just went in, with my excitement, and I wasn't gonna let their words, judge how I was feeling about the movie. I definitely think that you shouldn't go listen to people. I think you should definitely go check out this movie. Don't let people's, thumbnails fool you. Definitely go check out this movie, because it is definitely a movie to go watch, because this movie was definitely a fun movie. I definitely think so. And like I said, I'm really hoping a lot of the characters come back in part two, because there was a lot of like there was a lot of there was for a lot of the characters, there was ways that we left things in this movie where I was like, will these characters return for part two? So I'm really hoping a lot of characters that we kind of left it in a place that I kind of felt like, oh, will they return? I'm really hoping that they do return, because I feel like it really would end this, end this kind of, franchise in a good way, for seeing a lot of the characters that we saw in part one return in part two, because I feel like there is a lot of like character development that we saw in this movie in part one that will really end off in a great way if we see it kind of, follow through in part two, and kind of, tie this franchise up with a bow. And end it off with a bow. I really do think that, they will really stick the landing if we see a lot of characters return. But I'm really curious to know down in the comments below, what did you guys think of, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Have you seen it yet? I'm thinking maybe you saw it, and you're checking out my non-spoiler. Maybe you haven't seen it and you're wondering if you should see it, if the trailers maybe weren't doing it for you. This movie is good, and I'm really hoping that, it makes a lot of money. I'm really hoping it does, because and also this movie is what the theaters needed. That is for damn sure. Tom Cruise always knows how to deliver on saving the theaters, and this movie definitely is saving the theaters worthy. This is what the movie theaters needs. Same as how Across the Spider-Verse is what the movie theaters needed. Same as how Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is what the movie theaters needed. This movie is what the movie theaters needed. It is truly a fun movie, and it definitely is worth a watch. But as always, guys, yet again here, if you're new to the channel, subscribe to the channel, punch notifications, like this video. I would love to have you guys here, part of the family, part of the channel. We're all about spreading love, positivity, and motivation. And yet again, guys, we're almost to 1,000 subscribers. We're on the road to hitting 1,000, so I would just love if you guys can help me get there. Definitely go check around my channel if you are new here. I offer a lot here on the channel. And guys, like I said, I'm really curious to know, did you like the movie? Did you not like the movie? Of course, as always, make sure that you do no spoiler review, no spoilers down in the comment section. Or hell, maybe, I don't know. Probably no spoilers down in the comment section, because I don't want anybody going down there, saying something and then, seeing something and then they get spoiled if they haven't seen the movie. If anything, I'll probably make a separate video, doing spoilers. Maybe that's what I'll do. Let me know if you guys are interested in that. But as always, guys, I hope everybody has a great day, a safe day, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.